Welcome to the Stories Are Soul Food podcast with your hosts, Brian Kohl and best-selling author, N.D. Wilson. This audio is brought to you by Cannonball Books and Great Homeschool Conventions.
We're recording now, so I can tell you that I was being scolded about not having issued NFTs, and so now I have issued NFTs.
Okay, I think you should explain that for the podcast viewership.
We should talk about it.
I think so. I think it's pretty. It's a world changing thing.
We want to get into it somehow. If we can tie it into Boys of Blur.
Yeah,
Lucy did great work on those.
Those are truly incredible.
Bartholomew is my favorite by a long shot.
If you follow N.D. Wilson on Twitter,
yes,
you'll have seen the Crypto Nuggies.
Crypto Nuggies.
N.D. Wilson's launch into the NFT marketplace.
Experiment number 1.
Yeah, you can get what appear to be high quality chicken nuggets.
It's actually the original 20-piece, the original Earth Colony Alpha of these little characters, the 20-piece of characters, the Crypto Nuggies. They each have a role, they each have a personality, they have their names. Yeah, so the first 20 NFTs issued are 20 Crypto Nuggies. What else can I say? They're Crypto Nuggies.
Yeah.
They were once Chicken McNuggets, and they are no longer. They are now Crypto Nuggies.
They're now highly, what are they priced at? A little bit of an Ethereum piece.
Yeah, a fraction of an Ethereum. But it is funny. Yeah, so this is... I am experimenting with NFTs because I have been told many times already that I need to be selling NFTs from IP of my books. So I should be selling NFTs connected to cupboards and connected to Ashtown and connected to, Hello Ninja.
If you don't know what an NFT is,
then you're a normal human.
And you need to, but they are, digital.
Non-fungible tokens. They are digital artifacts that are one-offs.
Yeah.
So
you might think you could just take a screenshot of the original 20-piece, but you couldn't because they're tied to their original.
Yeah, they're minted to the blockchain. They are, in fact, I've paid all the gas fees. I've learned what a gas fee is when you're minting something. But it's super weird. It is a weird thing, but then it makes some sense. So if you think about it, we're being totally distracted here, but an NFT, like a digital ticket on your phone is an NFT. So you have access to a particular thing, a particular row, a particular seat. There's this non-fungible token. That ticket's not exchangeable. Yeah. It's a one-off. So back in the day, a ticket stub to, a U2 concert, so like the first concert in the Joshua Tree tour or something like that, a ticket stub would sell for a pretty good chunk of money, even though it's been used. It's a stub for that ticket. A rookie card would be, a baseball card, or Michael Jordan rookie card would sell for a lot of money. And so now think of NFTs as like that ticket stub, but like that digital ticket stub.
There you go.
And there's a lot of it the thing I enjoy the most about it is the creation of characters and IP and story, like, just random little narratives. And so I'm experimenting with Crypto Nuggies created by my daughters, because I'm not going to just lunge out there with digital assets from Hello Ninja and have no idea what I'm doing.
Although seeing how well these Crypto Nuggies do, we may soon see some Ninja clips.
I expect to be launching Hello Ninja NFTs. I expect to be launching other NFTs from other characters and assets, book properties, film, TV properties. I expect to be doing that, but I want to know what I'm doing first. And so I want to learn.
So if you follow sports, you'll see all the athletes are putting out 12-second highlight. Well, it's shorter than that, more like 1 or 2 second clips that they then sell, and you can own that limited edition of the rookie card of whatever his name is.
Yep. So I think the most expensive NFT ever just sold, and it was a meme. It's like the owner of a dog that had this viral meme. The dog was in a meme, just sold the original meme for, I want to say, like $8 million or something like that.
Which is crazy because everybody else has access to them.
You think you do. And this is one of the things that I've said a lot actually to different people, is that if you FaceTime with somebody, you're not actually seeing their face. If you you're seeing the phone interpret a bunch of translated ones and zeros. So a little artificial brain in somebody's hand in Wisconsin has captured the light through a crystal off of their face and then interpreted, translated down into ones and zeros the instructions to reproduce something that looks like that, then sent it through the air to your little artificial brain, which then follows the instructions to try to recreate, like paint by numbers, a picture. And so they're never the same and it's never the original. And people are actually starting to figure out how to one-off digital artifacts and lock it as the original. So up until now, we would say, but every time I text that meme to somebody, it's the exact same thing as the original. It's like, well, no, it's not actually. It never has been.
JPEGs lose a little bit, don't they?
It has the exact same impression.
They're lossy.
It's all paint by numbers. It's all, every different phone, everything is doing a little paint by numbers routine interpreting the instructions. And so when you mint the original and you say, okay, this is the original and it cannot be duplicated. It can be, you can share a picture of it, but it's not it. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
That's not actually a surprise to me, but it is a weird thing to get your head around because we do think that the digital world creates total equivalence and it does not.
Right. Because if you remember the original Charlie Bit Me video.
Yeah. Charlie.
About the
that
kid
really hurt.
Yeah, auto-tuned and all. The original of that just sold.
Yeah, exactly.
For a ton of money. Millions.
Yeah.
And then the owner put it back up on YouTube because they thought everyone should have access to the original Charlie Bit Me. So I don't know. There's already virtue signaling in the NFT world, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, once you have your millions, I have now. Anyway, it's all very funny and it's all strange, and people are going to figure it out. And there's going to be a ton of mistakes and screw ups and
lost money and game money.
And the nice thing is that so I'm goofy. It's like, am I goofing off? Am I not goofing off? I'm not. I'm creating characters and stories. That's what I do for money. I do that for money.
Well, to make this relevant to this podcast,
right. I'm stories.
Right. It is stories. I'm also impressed with if you've ever tried to create names for characters, you need to just come check out ND Wilson's Crypto Nuggy names. Geffen, Oren.
Yeah, no, they're
Angel and Sweeney. There's 20 of them.
Yeah, you need to take a look. They make me very happy. Like it is really funny how I look through the original 20 piece. The crew photos, as I describe in the
You're killing me.
The crew photos. It says that they were acquired crew photographs from the Earth Colony Alpha original 20 piece. And then you go down and there's a little description. They were fried on June 8th. They were documented on June 10th, and they were devoured by aliens on June 10th. They're gone forever. They'll never be back. And I would like to tell you all that just like human fingerprints and snowflakes, no two chicken nuggets are the same. And when they're crypto nuggies, even less so. They're even you try to sit there and stare at a chicken McNugget and try to find its personality and its character. And that's really, it has one. And that's really funny.
Yeah, you put the eyes and the features on. Is there more stories to these crypto nuggies, or will there be?
There are, but I've just decided not to reveal them yet.
Okay.
So I did have to.
You got to pay for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. So theoretically, there'll be future 20 piece, Earth Colony Beta, Earth Colony Gamma, and so on.
So they're coming from somewhere to Earth. Okay.
Yeah.
A bad place for chicken nuggies to arrive.
Yes, a really dangerous place to arrive when freshly fried. So anyway, and this also came out of a lot of conversations with people who are wanting to talk to me about kids, intellectual property, and new shows, and just stuff. What do you have that could be Hello Ninja again? What other things do you have that you could just whip out in cartoon world? Crypto nuggies. Well, here we are. There's another one I wanted to do called Very Important Peeps, which is just those little peep. My sister-in-law used to do a lot of peep art, which it was like she missed her moment. She was doing peep art.
That's a hot NFT.
She would set up pretty significant peep dioramas and photograph them. But that's where we are. It's like, okay, let's do peep art.
Well, those same peeps are probably still around. They don't have the same. They don't have the same lifetime as a chicken. As a chicken
McNugget. Yeah. So anyway, all this to say, stories are everywhere, and you dump your 20 piece out on the table and try to find their characters, just looking at their texture and their shapes, and which one of them needs two large mismatched eyes.
Well lighted on a black background.
Yeah. Which one of them is named Bartholomew? That's the real question. Bartholomew is my favorite, by the way. Bartholomew and Una. If you look at the Crypto Nugget collection, those two are the best. But anyway, this all ties into stories in a weird way, but that's not what we're talking about today, even though we just did.
Yeah. I don't have a good segue into Boys of Blur from the
Boys
Crypto
of
Nuggets.
Blur is another NFT.
It's set in Florida where you can buy chicken nuggets of your own.
Yeah. Well, actually, here's the weird tie-in. For a lot of people, NFTs feel fake, right? Like, what is this? It's a
I want the actual baseball card. I want the chicken nugget itself.
Yeah. What is this thing? Well, the weird part is that I've always made my living with non-fungible tokens. I mean, I've always made my living with intellectual property, with copyrights, with here's a story. Is the story the actual black on dead trees? Is it actually the letters on the paper?
Right.
Like, no, it's not actually. I write it, I create it digitally. I have a thing that I make and I make it up.
In fact, the physical manifestation is quite a bit later in the process.
Yeah, significantly later. And it's also not what I sell. I don't sell that.
Yeah, that's true. You sell the rights to the publisher.
Yeah, I sell the, non-fungible token. I sell the doc. And it's not even the doc. Like, it could be any number of formats, digital formats or whatever. I sell the thing inside the doc, the thing that is my ideas. I take ideas and I sell them. I've literally taken nightmares and sold them. And that is always what I've done. So this is strange. It's an interesting little moment, but it's actually not that foreign to me. It is very foreign to a lot of people. Like, but why would I buy that?
Right. It reminds me of when we had Doug Tennaple on and he was saying, I added an N to the front of Newts because this is my story.
Now I own it.
I own it.
Yeah. As opposed to
something that anyone.
It's an animal that anybody can own.
Right. Well, interesting. Boys of Blur. Can you tell us about where that one came from? Where does it come in the lineup? Probably refresh us on that one.
Boys of Blur came, I sold it. When did I sell it? This is when we're getting into kind of the soap opera of my career.
Published in 2014.
Yep. But I sold it with Outlaws of Time.
Right. Okay.
To Random House.
Random House.
Yes.
Okay, but it did not publish with Random House.
Blur published with Random House, but Outlaws of Time was HarperCollins. Yeah.
Okay, so there is a little bit of tension there.
Yes, and it's I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I mean, the actual contract might have been a standalone, but what ended up happening is, so I had the idea, I had the whole concept. It was, the original title was Muck Flats. It was called Muck Flats, and I love that title still, but Random House shot it down. I like Boys of Blur as a title as well. I mean, that was my title as well. They just signed off on it. I generated a ton of them for them. But Ashtown book one had released, had been really successful. Everything was taking off. Fan base was building. Publicity was getting canceled. There was everything from fulfillment problems to tour problems to all sorts of things happening with book two. And then I get a message from somebody saying, hey, do you think you could do this in 4 books instead of 5? Because Ashtown was supposed to be a 5-book series. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. And I think that works, because I was still, after book 2, I was working on 3 and thinking, sure, I've got, it'll grow a little bit. So I'm working on book 3, Empire of Bones. And then it's, I submit the NFT that is the doc. And I'm going through the editing process. And as we go to the ARCs, which are those paperback galleys that get published for critics 6 months in advance, I am told, like, I think this will be it. This will just be the end of the series. It ends in a good place.
Wait, what?
And I was like, hold on, like, what's going on here? And my publisher had retired. So the woman who actually had acquired the series retired. All my publicists left. Also, my editor retired. It was just this big, weird turning. And there were still people that I'm friends with, and I know. The woman who was promoted to publisher at Random House is a friend, and she's great. But it's, it was just turmoil, right? Then book 3 dropped cold, no publicity, just like, here we are. We're done. We finished now. We also changed the cover format. We changed the design. We changed titles. Stuff just changed a lot in the process from book 1, book 2, book 3. Those 3 came out. None of the hardcovers matched. So if you go and find first printing edition 1, the format changes.
Yeah. Which and I'm sure some of you have noticed.
Yep. And even when book 1 dropped, I got a concept art, and they said, well, obviously this is rough, like this isn't finished. And apparently the artist didn't want to finish, and so that ended up being the cover, the cover art.
Surprise.
Yeah, like surprise. So it was this weird, slow motion car wreck, and still people loved it, and still it was building fans, and I was getting so much anger from people after book 3 dropped, and just so much anger from fans who are reaching out wanting to know when the next one's dropping, because there's like no news at all. Well, the new boss shows up at Random House, and I meet with her for my first time. She's a nice lady. We just have very different taste. It's always been funny. There's been funny conversations. I meet with her for the first time, which is, well, here's the thing. You're just way too dark. You are too dark. Much too dark. And Ashtown is just bleak and rough and everything else. And we eventually will just talk about the Ashtown books on their own. And my daughter was at the office with me in New York. She was reading a book out in the hall, and she happened to overhear this. I think she was 10. And if you know my daughter, this fits perfectly with her personality. She kicks off the floor and wheels her office chair into the open doorway of this room where I'm having my meeting, leans back and looks at this woman and says, "Maybe for you." And then just kicks the floor and just like wheels away again, just disappears, while she was telling me that it was way too dark, and that I'm one of the most depressing, morbid writers, all this stuff. She just didn't understand the resurrection stuff. It's so deeply gospel in many ways that it was just frightening.
Okay, but also pause. It's not really compared to tons of other stuff out there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like the whole market has changed in the past 7 years, right?
Yeah, it has, really. I mean, this is what I've said earlier, where you say, I can say of the Harry Potter series, she doesn't believe in magic. It's like she doesn't have she's not really writing what she thinks happens. And so with Ashtown, while I have all this fantasy stuff, all the fantasy accoutrement,
in your oeuvre.
My oeuvre. I have all that. I also have this beating heart that is very much what I believe.
Yeah, you do believe it.
And that's scary, and it's intense. And if you write in a visceral way, and you don't try to write to people's intellects, you try to write to their senses, and you try to impact them physically with the story, and you really believe it, then it's an experience. It is a lot more filling. I think it's a lot more protein. I think it's a lot more filling than otherwise, but it also is a little bit, for people who don't believe it, it's a little bit off-putting.
Yeah, I mean, there is dark stuff in Empire Bones.
Yeah, there is. But if you're talking about self-sacrifice and what is, greater love has no man than this, what is the point? What is goodness versus evil? Why do we fight as pragmatists? Do we fight as Darwinian? And the answer is no to those things. But anyway, so all this is happening, and on top of this, from her perspective, here she sits on this franchise that I've written called Ashtown Burials, that is rough and tumble, let's just say, and is far and away most beloved by fans of my stuff. Just in terms of commitment, like super fandom. There's, 100 Cupboards has sold more copies. Dragon's Tooth has actually sold a lot of copies, but 100 Cupboards has moved more units. But Ashtown fans are Ashtown fans. They're different than all the other fans. But on top of this, I've sold Random House a trilogy that comes right behind this about a kid with rattlesnakes in his arms. And so she's sitting, and I want to do this book, Boys of Blur. So I've got Blur here, and I've got the Ashtown series, and she's looking to vacate my contract with Ashtown, the rest of the books. She wants to be done. And she wants to just give me back Outlaws of Time, because she doesn't, she's just done. So she wants to sub Blur in for an Ashtown book. So Boys of Blur was published, and now we come full circle, in lieu of The Silent Bells.
I think I heard a great cry go up from all your fans.
Yeah.
who have been waiting for that book for.
Yeah, and which is, it's coming. Suck it up.
Right, exactly.
It's well underway.
More than halfway.
Yeah, absolutely. Chapter 14 just went out.
Yep.
So,
those of
but
you
anyway,
who are
so Boys of Blur. I'm trying to think. Like, was it? Either way, it got subbed into one of the closing. Oh yeah, okay. Now I'm remembering. Book 4, book 5 of Ashtown became The Door Before and Boys of Blur.
Gotcha.
So,
and you agreed with that because you didn't really want to publish a book with them if they didn't, or did you feel like you kind of had no option?
A little bit of both, but I still, as much as I disagreed with these people, I really, have nothing against them and I don't dislike them. It's like
right.
and it was an honest conversation, and it's kind of like, okay, so who's to blame for why, the series kind of tied its own shoelaces together in its release, and why promotion was weird and why stuff fell down. Like, well, a lot of people don't even work there anymore. Like stuff varies quickly. And I've seen this in Hollywood too, where you sell something to an executive, and by the time the lawyers are done with the contract, the executive's taking a different job.
And then they say, why did we get this project? I don't
like
it's
it. Like what? Yeah, exactly. So here's somebody who's taking over something, and she's looking at the list, and the list is not to her taste. And she's also just looking at sales numbers for book 3 and book 2 of Ashtown. It was like, these aren't great. Like, it's like, so in that postmortem, I could say, yeah, well, but it's the fault of this person who went over there and that person who went over there and whatever.
Which is a lame place to be.
Yeah. So I didn't feel like having that big fight. And I think it's also kind of proven out over time because Ashtown's just grown and grown and grown.
Right.
And so which I appreciate, because it's like, okay, it did work. It did feed people. It has resonated. So it's been very successful in a long-term grassroots way. But so Boys of Blur, and again, there's a lot of shrapnel flying. So I'm not putting my hand on the Bible and swearing. There's some like fogginess in memory here. It's like The Door Before I subbed in was a book I wanted to do, and it was the bridge book between Coverts and Ashtown. So I was excited. So I was excited about the opportunity to do that one. And I had thought they wouldn't buy it from me. So I had thought, like, okay, that's exciting. I get to sub in The Door Before.
Right.
And here's Boys of Blur, which is a project I've been wanting to do forever. And so I was pumped, and I was like, okay, just give me back Outlast of Time, which she did. And honestly, she didn't need to. That was extremely generous. And so I think that was partly just because she knew it's like, okay, this isn't what I wanted to be doing. So she gave those rights back, which is great. And so I got that trilogy back without having to buy it. I didn't have to pay them back the advance they'd already given me. They just they just comped it to me, which is lovely. And then I got to work on, I had Boys of Blur and I had Door Before to write. So Boys of Blur, the original idea had come because as somebody who loves football, college football especially, I had heard kind of all the urban mythology, or I should say rural mythology, over where the fastest kids in the country come from. And, I'd seen clips of like Bobby Bowden, the old Florida State head coach, saying things like, well, they're the fastest kids in the country because they grew up chasing rabbits in the sugarcane fields. And I was like, well, that's weird. This is strange. And so I kind of dug into that a little bit. I was like, yeah, in Central Florida, around the banks of Lake Okeechobee, which is a great name and a great location.
Yeah.
In this thick black silt where they, basically the state of Florida doesn't really exist. It's like a sandbar. They drained, a lot of water's been drained. And when Lake Okeechobee used to flood, a lot of people would die because that water can just go and go and go. Because there's, down in that panhandle, there's not a lot of height. I think I was standing in the middle of it at like 13 feet above sea level.
Okay.
Like dead center. So anyway, I'd heard these stories that back in the sugarcane fields, I, could go find these kids who are getting really fast, which is why this one little area had put, at the time, 30 players in the NFL in 30 years from a population of basically the same as our small town in Idaho.
Wow.
And you're just kind of like, whoa, okay, that's interesting. How does this happen? And they're all speed rolls. They're not offensive linemen. These are guys making the league as receivers and running backs, but primarily receivers. Defensive backs, just like small, fast, super fast. So then I happened to be, I wanted to write this story. I wanted to write something in this setting because I wanted to hop around America and these different, fantastical places. And Florida was very, very appealing to me. And I'd already pulled Leon, the turtle from Florida, and the mythology of Florida for Ashtown.
Shout out to Ashtown, yeah.
Yep. And so Florida's got just a cool, oeuvre.
The milieu.
The milieu of Floridians. So the mythology goes way back. It's one of the oldest points of contact in the New World.
You get Ponce de Leon.
Yep. You get the conquistador explorers. You get a lot of fun stuff back there, story-wise. So I was in Florida doing a literacy event. It's a whole different story, but I was doing this literacy campaign event with the Barbara Bush Foundation, and mentioned to the Bush family at some luncheon or somewhere where we were talking about the school kids and reading and literacy that I really wanted to write this story set in Florida. And they told me, it's like, well, when you do come back, you let us know.
What?
And
we'll put George and...
Yeah, this was Jeb and Barbara and Laura at a luncheon. And they said, when you come back, we'll put a call in and you can go anywhere and do anything you want. So it's like, okay, that's fun. So I did. I went back to research, to go back to these little towns. They put a call into U.S. Sugar, and U.S. Sugar showed me around the fields and the harvest and the whole thing, and these amazing flamethrower trucks that they use to drive around the sugarcane fields to light them all on fire. And the whole concept of the boys becoming fast. And it wasn't just chasing rabbits. They're not just chasing rabbits in the fields, which is what I'd heard. Yeah, they grow up chasing rabbits in the field. They grow up chasing rabbits through burning fields.
Wow.
So what you do is you have this block of, 10 acres of sugarcane or so, and an old pickup with a flamethrower on the back drives through, and it's so claustrophobic because there's no topography and you're down in the sugarcane. You can't see anywhere. Like you just can't see out. Then you get up next to a canal and there's gators down in the canal and snakes and all sorts of stuff. And this truck shows up, and it shows up to a cane field that's going to be ready to be harvested. And it drives around the three sides of this 10-acre block or so. I don't remember the exact dimensions, but lights all three sides on fire that are upwind. And so it lights all three sides of this 10-acre block on fire upwind, and the fire just rips through the cane, burning off all the leafy matter that enables the cane to now be harvested.
Okay.
Just burns it down to the bones.
So they don't do a chaff method kind of on these things. They just burn it off.
They just burn it off. And so they light it, and the wind does the rest. The wind just carries it through this, and it's a huge, huge tower of fire.
Talk about an awesome job.
Yeah, and then black smoke. And they light it, and the fire just moves downwind through this sugarcane, burning off all the leaves. So it's just hot sugar sticks. And then downwind, on the downwind side, if you're near one of these little towns, there's all these little boys sitting there waiting for the fire. And they have t-shirts tied across their faces, and they're wearing socks instead of shoes because the silt is too deep and sucks at your feet too much that they lose their shoes. So they take their shoes off and pull socks up. They have t-shirts tied over their faces. And every living creature in that 10 acres comes out that downwind side at these boys. So bobcats, diamondbacks, big rattlesnakes, and then rabbits. These little muck rabbits come pouring out, and the boys chase the rabbits. And they go, flying around, jumping canals, running in and out of the smoking sugarcane. And once the fire's ripped through, there's still like lots of crackling, fiery zones in this 10 acres. The harvesters come rolling through and start cutting the cane. And the boys are still chasing rabbits all around. Heavy equipment and fire.
For food, for fun? What do they want?
For $2 a rabbit skin.
$2 a skin. I like it.
And $5 for a cottontail. So a little muck rabbit is $2. And if you get a cottontail, it's $5. And it is a point of pride if you catch a cottontail with your bare hands.
Ooh.
So, and it's not just a point of personal pride, it's like generational pride. Like they know which of these kids have fathers who have caught a cottontail bare hand. Like it's this very cool thing. So I'm here and I watch all this and I get to light fields on fire and I, get to see cool stuff. And then I go to, in football, you're in the South, but you're also in a unique version in Florida. And football's everything. And I go to the Muck Bowl, which is this rivalry game between two of these tiny towns in the sugarcane fields right by Okeechobee. And it's a big deal. The Muck Bowl is a big deal. And this old coach comes over to me, like limping in his sweatpants that are too short, and he's wearing a Letterman's jacket. I mean, he must have been in his 80s and not long for this world. Comes hobbling over to me and holds up his hands, and he's got like 8 championship rings on his hands. Whoa. He's wearing these huge, like as if they were Super Bowl rings, but they're just state high school championship rings all over his hands. And that's when it clicked for me. Like, it was such a heroic / macho world where, I mean, just you're out in the literal swamps, like chasing game for small bits of money, building your own legend and your own lore around like what you're able to catch. It's so cool, but also very, very of the earth and old. It's this old heroic code. And when this coach came over and showed me his rings, it clicked for me that I was going to do a Beowulf story. And I was like, okay, this is the ring giver. This is that heroic code. This is Beowulf. This is monsters in the swamps. That's what I'm doing. And I'm going to write a story in which these boys, in an area where these boys grow up chasing the rabbits and where they become the rabbits that are chased in these fields. Like, I'm going to have a nice little inversion, but also, there's plenty of violence here. There's plenty of poverty. There's plenty of broken families. There's a lot of like the base themes of sons and fatherhood and everything else, and what makes you valuable. From that trip, watching all this happen and setting the fields on fire and watching the whole mechanism of the society, like work around, you are what you accomplished on this field in high school. And what you accomplished on this field in high school is determined by what you accomplished in those fields as a kid. Like, you're training early just to survive, just to get money. And then the fastest and the best become legends on the football field. And the best of those become legends on the football field nationally. And that was it. That was the way out. You were going to become true heroes. Like, it starts chasing rabbits and it moves up through the football field and up. So anyway, I wanted to tell a story about one of these legends who succeeded and got away, coming back to become the coach because his old coach is passed, and bringing his stepson with him, because I needed these outside eyes. I needed to bring in the reader who's never been there, the reader who's like going into a fantasy world, going into a totally foreign place. And so the setup is this guy named Prester Mack, who's named after Prester John, by the way, who's also
Children's Crusade. Is that the Children's Crusade?
No, Prester John is a little more depressing story. But
okay.
Yeah. Prester is an abbreviation of presbyter, and is basically a Christian civilization, a mythical Christian civilization in Africa that Christians in Europe refused to help as it was wiped out by Muslim invasion.
Oh.
Because they said it didn't exist. And so then it got erased.
So then it did not. As a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. And that's what I'm playing with in Silent Bells right now, by the way. I know. So
I've been doing a little research as I try to get these.
So I'm making plenty of stuff. But it's anyway, so Prester Mack is this guy who is a legend. And he is returning for a funeral and is being, kind of offered the coaching job. Like he's going to be the high school coach, come back as an ex-NFL star, one of the boys who made it, one of the legends, and bringing his stepson.
Right. And you said before that you plan your main characters, obviously, very carefully. So you were contrasting Thomas with, say, Henry.
Yep.
And this is Charlie, right?
Yep. So Charlie Reynolds is in a very different situation. So if we're talking about cupboards, Henry York is this boarding school overprotected kid arriving in Kansas. If we go Tom Hammond, we have a dead father, missing father, and he's Telemachus. He's struggling to protect his mom, but can't. Has to become his father's legacy. In this one, it's kind of a kick against blood fatherhood. It's like he's got an adoptive father. Charlie Reynolds is this white kid with a black stepfather who is a legendary NFL player and is being taken back to not only where his stepfather is from, but also where his birth father was from. Yeah, his birth father and his stepfather were rivals in high school. And really hated each other, and ended up on two sides of the continental divide. One having achieved, immortality,
everything that,
and the other having achieved dead end life in alcoholism, like just having really just lost everything. And the reason for that was because when I decided to use Beowulf, one of the big themes of Beowulf is envy. And so Grendel envies the joy and the laughter in the mead hall, and he needs to destroy it. And so Charlie comes back into a place where his birth father is also from, and where his birth father is consumed with envy.
Yeah, and with that too, you also have the inner fighting and the kin slaying being a huge theme of
feuds.
Beowulf.
Yeah, so you have
being the worst possible thing.
Yep. Yeah.
Is hating your own people.
Yep. And so Charlie comes back and has roots in this place, but he doesn't know any of them. He's just coming cold. He's arriving cold. And having to meet his second cousin, who just tells him cousins are cousins, and they're off to the races. And so he's got a guide. He's got a guide in this place, reacquainting him with his own heritage. And then which father is which father is he? Of which legacy is he?
Yeah, are you the line of Cain or are you the line of Beowulf?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the setup. And the setup is this amazing location that I did not invent, but I visited, and it's phenomenal. It's heartbreaking, it's interesting, it's riveting, it's got tons of joy and laughter, and then just tons of muck.
So what do you think the solution is for Charlie? What does Charlie need?
Well, Charlie is basically, Charlie also has, the only legacy he has is memories of a pretty horrible and abusive relationship with his birth father. So he has, memories for his mom, for himself. So he's a little damaged. He's got a great stepdad, but he's he basically has to like heal and grow. And it's one of those things where he has to stop wanting something else. Like he has to do. And so the choice of envy and the choice of what people do is like, how are you going to just want? Plenty of people just want. And in wanting, they want stuff to be different. They want stuff to have not happened. They want things to be other than what they are. And so having a kid who's faced with that, and that's really common at that age. So if you're entering junior high, you wish you were taller, you wish you were faster, you wish you were smarter, you wish you were cooler, you would like
wish your vertical was this much.
Yeah, exactly.
Bigger.
You wish you were a legend already, and couldn't everybody think you were amazing? And you also wish people would stop looking, and you wish you wouldn't get noticed, and you wish you could disappear. And there's a lot of that.
Yeah, you wish you had friends with the right people rather than the people you are friends with. That kind of thing. And
you simultaneously want to be welcomed, but also ignored, and like there's all this contradiction.
Yeah.
In early adolescence. So Charlie's showing up, wanting to disappear, but he's just going to stand out as the slow kid. And everybody knows that he's, Bobby's son, but he's Prester's stepson. And the region is divided with people who are still loyal to Bobby or still loyal to Prester. Like, so you have people who think that Prester did wrong and poor Bobby, and, he's just kind of thrown out here, but he's thrown out here to become loyal to this place, regardless of its faults, and to help try to save this place, save these people from a curse, a growing curse that is powered by destructive envy.
Yeah. How do you fight that? One thing we quote around the house is comparison is the thief of joy. I can't remember who said that, but
somebody smart.
Yeah. But how does someone handle that envy? That's one of the most fundamental personal sins.
Yeah. It seems like so poisonous. It's
seems like an important one for a kid's book. And I don't know, I'm trying to think of other kids' books where envy is a huge one that they talk through. Maybe it's something that J.K. Rowling was trying to deal with Draco and Harry and Snape and Harry's dad, but I don't feel like it's quite so focused.
There's rivalries. Yeah. And I think that Snape and Harry's dad, it boils down to Harry's dad was also a bully and was kind of nasty to Snape.
Right. Yeah.
So it's resentment, bitterness there, but less. There is envy. There's an envy piece, but it's not like the driver.
He also was mistreated.
Cain and Abel. Yeah.
Right.
Abel wasn't bullying Cain. Abel was just better.
Yeah.
Dealing with that is, it's tough, right? So gratitude
Mm-hmm.
for what's in front of you, and what are you doing with it? What are you doing with it? And having people realize that they'll be held to account for what they did with their own opportunities. With their own stories and with what was put in front of them, they're not going to be judged according to somebody else's gifts. They're going to be judged according to theirs, according to their opportunities.
Yeah.
Which they could miss if they're just staring sideways.
Yeah.
It is a big, tough one. I mean, it really is. And it's,
I think that gratitude one ties back around to your project. You're trying to get people to see.
Yeah.
You might wish you were somewhere else, but look at where you are and see if you're missing something.
Focusing on where you actually are and what you've actually been given, and what story leads, starts right out your back door. What story do you have to walk? And are you going to miss it because you're spending all your time wishing you had a different one?
Yeah. Sometimes when we have a son who's struggling, we'll play the Thanksgiving game where they're not allowed to say anything without saying what they're thankful for first. And when you've decided this isn't discipline level yet, but it is an attitude issue.
Got to try to reprogram.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it usually is funny because you're like, well, can I talk? And I'm like, no, you got to say something you're thankful for. So they're just like grabbing a ton of stuff from around.
Peanut butter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Outside.
Yeah, exactly. Which is great. So in this situation, you have a kid who has a horrible background, and he rolls into a town where he feels totally sorry for himself, right? Because he was abused when he was little. His dad was an alcoholic. Now he has a stepdad. And
he's one of your few characters who didn't start with, well, I guess who doesn't have that. You write very strong families usually.
Yep.
Even if Henry doesn't know about his very strong family to start with.
Yeah, there's one out there.
Right. And so it is interesting to look at Charlie. He's a bit different there.
He's in a different situation. One of the things that happens is he could feel sorry for himself and wish life was other than it was. But when he arrives in this place, he's immediately resented and envied.
Mm.
Yeah, like he is immediately envied. And it's just this, he's taken aback. There's a kid who's a star that he doesn't even know, who's competitive with him, and there's this envy between them. He doesn't know why, but it goes back to these old, the old story, the old family story, the old kinslaying and betrayal and everything else. So why does this star athlete, why does he hate Charlie? Why does he envy Charlie? Why does he want to destroy him? And Charlie's got to kind of figure that out. So instead of it basically, everybody could, once you start the cycle of envy, everybody can envy everybody else.
Yeah.
It's just, that's the way it is. The kid with the biggest bowl of ice cream can find something to envy in somebody else.
Right.
And so he shows up as this, damaged goods, and is just seen as the spoiled rich kid who has everything.
Yeah. Without spoiling, can you talk moms in this story? Because you've got obviously Grendel and Grendel's mother as she's perhaps one of the best villains, I think, in the classic world.
So,
and then of course Charlie's mom.
Yep. So Charlie's mom is tough. She's basically weathered the storm. It's like she's done a great job, but she's also not the person who can solve it for you. She's a survivor. She's not a rescuer. She's like somebody who got out of the disaster, but she's not the firefighter who's there to pull you out. She can't. And so Charlie's very he's built to be protective of her and his little sister, as a result of that. So she's great. She's a great character. She's wholesome. She's loving. She's maternal in the best ways, but she's not going to save you. And that's important. And then Grendel's mother, and I create a race of monsters, basically who are her children. So there's not one Grendel. There are the Gren, who are coming out of the swamps. They're parasitically feeding off of the life and the muck and the cane. And they bring the influence of envy. So like they stink. So they're called the Stanks or the Gren. And when they have their aroma has a intoxicating effect. The intoxication is envy.
Yeah.
Like you start being consumed with hate, and envy. And that's because that's what they are. they envy the living. They envy the people who are still leading life. They want to destroy it because they can't have it. And as soon as you smell this stink, you start instinctively, no pun intended, you start instinctively just resenting and envying others. Like it just is poisonous in that way. And that comes from their mother, who's the big leech, sort of like back in the woods, back near that fountain of youth where Leon the turtle grew enormous and joined Ashtown. She's back in there, which is ultimately like that quest for immortality and power that people are always consumed with is one of envy. It's a cycle of envy. It's ingratitude, resentment
for what you have and how much time you have.
And you could be 109, and you don't want to die tomorrow. You want one more day. It's like it'd be easy. You could be 84 and have lived a really, really rich life and feel ripped off if you only have 3 more weeks.
Yeah.
But you're in a world where somebody else died at 31, and it'd be really easy for them to just resent the fact they didn't get 32. Instead of thinking about being given 31 years that you didn't deserve, it's like, this is, it's like winning Powerball, but only winning $3 million. It's
Gotcha.
like you find a Powerball ticket, in the street, and it's a $3 million ticket.
And you said I wanted 333 million.
Yeah, and you're sitting here and you're like, holy cow, I just won $3 million. And you look up and there's another ticket 15 feet ahead of you that somebody else picks up, and they turn around and say, I just won $250 million. And you're immediately like, oh, I'm such an idiot. Why did I not? Like, it's, you immediately let go of what you've been given, your own opposable thumbs, your own legs, your own feet and hands and eyeballs, and your own life. And whether it's 30 years or 50 years, it's never enough. No matter what, we could resent and envy. And that's what she represents. That's what she is. And so she's consumed with this desire to devour and control life, like to control life and to be immortal. And, she's this classic villain. She fits right into the Ashtown structure of the transmortals, the immortals. So she is, that's where she's coming from. And her children are all stolen. They're all stolen. They're all reanimated. And they're sent out as like spores of envy, just out into the human world to continue to devour. So that's where Grendel's mother fits in for me. But I got to take this great location that I didn't have to make up. I got to use it in the culture.
All the details.
Yep. Build the kid's dynamics, his relationships, his discovery in this place, and then try to fit it into a middle grade book, a short book. This isn't, I'm not trying to write a great big Oprah book club book, but the themes and the location deserve that. They deserve that treatment. They could take a much, much bigger study, but I wanted to come in and have it be quick, and it's all about the quick and the dead.
Yeah, you have some. Isn't there a book trailer you shot with some of this footage they can find online?
Yeah, actually, yeah, YouTube? We did, and that was from my trip down. We real quick filmed some stuff, and threw it together. But it's also, so I read the beginning. I wrote a prologue that's heavily poetic and choppy and sprinting, and it is all about, the whole story really is about the quick and the dead. Is the best way to say that. Boys of Blur is about the quick and the dead, and then some of the dead happen to be also very quick. They happen to be quickened. So it's rabbit chasers becoming rabbits chased, and ultimately, can you preserve and appreciate what you have, and live for others with gratitude, as opposed to live with ambition and envy, chasing what others already have. So Boys of Blur, some of my favorite writing that I've ever done is in that book, especially early when I'm kind of setting the poetic tone. And I had a big fight, big fight with some editors over it. Or like, nobody cares about like really poetic prose when you're a kid. And I said, I know, and yet it's still going to happen to them. Like when they read it, it will have an effect on them, like a drum beat. They don't need to understand. I don't need them to understand the poetry here. I need it just to occur to them. It's going to like a score. So I won that struggle because ultimately I do when it comes to words on the page. I might not with cover design or even title. A title's a marketing decision. But, the most quoted stuff from that book, the stuff that gets referred to all the time, they're all sentences and lines that editors try to delete.
Because?
Too poetic.
Too
rich.
Gotcha.
And I said, I'm trying to hat tip Anglo-Saxon. I'm trying to, really set the tone for what the book is and what it's doing.
Yeah.
So the very first line is, when the sugarcane's burning and the rabbits are running, look for the boys who are quicker than flame. And there's like, but it's just too much, versus you go to 100 Cupboards and it's Henry, Kansas was a hot town. It's like so.
Yeah, they got back at you though by kind of messing with your poetry on the back of the book.
Yes, but I ignore that.
Okay.
Yes, that never happened. The every cover is temporary, and this is something I tell every author. It doesn't matter if you don't like your cover. If the book is good, there will be other covers. There will be other editions. It will continue to live on. Do you know how many lame covers to Narnia there are? Plenty, and I love all of them. As a fan of the book, I can say, "Oh, this is epic! Look at this!" It's like, look at this. I can't believe they represented, Truffle Hunter this way or whatever it might be. Trumpkin looks so weird.
Yeah.
And it just is, as an author, you have to let go of that and be like, oh, whatever. So anyway, Boys of Blur, special place in my heart. I also had I probably shouldn't say this on a podcast, but I'm going to. I was at an event, as I occasionally am. I have not been in a long time, but I was at a publishing event, a dinner, and I'm at a table with my wife, and we're chatting to people, and suddenly somebody hits me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and there's a person sitting at another table, and they've had too much to drink, and they're hitting me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and I can smell the alcohol, and they lean back in their chair, and they introduce themselves, and I recognize them as a member of last year's Newbery Committee. Like, this was right after the Newbery was awarded. And this person tells me, we talked about your book, Boys of Blur, more than any other book in our deliberations for the Newbery this year. I was like, oh, thanks. Because it didn't win anything. I mean, Boys of Blur, I was like, that's kind of odd information. I was like, okay. And he said, just loved it, And this person, it was very funny. And then added, but ultimately it just didn't fit with the message we were trying to send this year. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you. Thanks. and that's been, and it was fine. It didn't upset me at all. It's actually just funny. And it was one of the big changes for me. I didn't have really any guidelines for how this stuff works. I thought, winning stuff, my only experience of trying to win was all sports, athletics. Like, you have a score, you try to win.
Yeah.
And
you put the ball in the basket.
Yeah. It took me a long time to realize that no, there's going to be a committee, and they have an agenda, and they have thoughts, and they're looking for something close to unanimity. And if you're a really strong flavor, then you're always running the risk of not being acceptable to somebody, which is fine.
Kind of death to a committee.
Yeah. So you really have to any authors who might be listening, or to anybody who might ever be an author, you have to really, really be grateful for those people. And sure, an award would be great, but you also have to not care. You have to do your work. And it's right back to the theme of envy. Like, do your work, take your opportunities, tell your story, do it as well as you can possibly do. And if it doesn't have to thread the needles of approval or accolades, or it sells 1,000 copies instead of 100,000 copies, or it sells 100,000 copies instead of 1 million copies, you can end up disappointed, or you can end up grateful and attack the next thing. And it's really, really important that you just keep your head to your own plow.
Right, because there is a scoreboard.
Because honestly, it only made me happy. It was like, it didn't make me frustrated. Like, oh man, like I wish they ripped me off. It's like, oh, I'm glad they talked about it. That's great.
Yeah, that's good news.
And it's at the same time, I need to go do my work and take my opportunities and tell the best stories I can tell, whether it's with rabbits and boys or with chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
Call back. Crypto nuggies, everybody. Get on before they're gone.
That's the end.
So yeah, anyway, don't envy people. Live your own life. Live it well.
Fight it with Thanksgiving.
Live it richly. Yeah, which means with gratitude. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Stories Are Soul Food podcast. If you're someone highly invested in kid fiction and finding the best stories for your kids and you haven't downloaded the Canon app, I want to encourage you to download and subscribe today. You can find things on there such as Christine Cohen's The Winter King, Ethan Nicole's Brave Ollie Possum, Peter Lightheart's Wise Words, a book on Narnia from Douglas Wilson titled What I Learned in Narnia, and much, much more. Download the app today wherever you get your apps and subscribe.